All right, it is 3 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I know that folks are still coming to join. I have a little bit of introductory material and some housekeeping details. But first of all, I want to welcome you all and thank you for attending. My name is Lucas Lachance. I'm the partner that oversees our practice growth here at Group at LGT. I am especially happy today for two reasons. One, I get to do the introductions, which means that I'm not going to be presenting today and you all dodged a bullet. Secondly, I get to present and introduce two friends of mine and colleagues, and I'm very, very proud of both of them for presenting today. So Practice Growth is responsible for all the marketing, publishing, advertising, special events, social media, business development, and community outreach for the firm. It's a lot of ground to cover for a team of 4 folks, and I am happy to welcome you to our first marketing webinar of 2020. LGT is a mid-sized accounting firm. We serve businesses of all sizes, however. One of our fundamental aspects of our mission is to give back to the communities in which we work through continuing education sessions, much like the one we have planned for you today. These free events are created to help your business grow and thrive. In this presentation, we're going to cover a variety of topics that are impactful to businesses in the construction, manufacturing, distribution, healthcare, auto dealership, real estate, and not-for-profit industries. The topics for our events are taken directly from the feedback we receive about the issues affecting you and your business. So please make sure you fill out the evaluation at the end of the event and leave comments with your suggestions. If you have any questions about this or any of our services, we'd be happy to set up a free consultation to determine how we can help your company or your organization. Just be sure to send us an email to askus, all one word, at lgt-cpa.com. So with all the housekeeping information out of the way, I am excited to introduce to you Josh Woods and Belle Holder. Josh Woods is the Practice Growth Project Manager with LGT. He's been with the firm 7 years. Prior to that, and somewhat concurrently, he also worked 20 years as the Chief of Media Relations with the U.S. Air Force Reserves at the Joint Reserve Base in Fort Worth. He is a gifted designer and is responsible for brand management, public relations, and marketing campaigns for our firm. And because he spends more than 2,000 hours a year working with me, he is also a whiskey drinker. Belle Holder is our social media manager and marketing analyst with LGT. She's been with us for a little over 2 years, ever since we were able to lure her to Texas from Kentucky. She's a gifted storyteller who got her start helping not-for-profit organizations tell about their missions on social media and build their brand. Branching out of the not-for-profit world, she has worked with professional sports teams and all the industry sectors served by LGT. Also, because she spends more than 2,000 hours a year working with me, she is a tequila enthusiast. With those things in mind, I present to you today Josh Woods and Belle Holder.
Wow, thank you so much, Lucas, for that. Yes, we do work on many hours, and honestly, he's probably the best boss that we have here. He's been very supportive of us and our goal of getting out there and presenting, not only just our accounting stuff, but really touching base on some of the marketing things that we have going on internally as well. Belle and I are really excited to be here with you all to share some of the insights we here at LGT have gained about marketing and business communication during these unprecedented times. As you can see, I'm talking to you from my humble abode. Over the past several months, we have all had to endure something that has thrown our world a curveball. I'm sorry, it's baseball season. For how long? Who knows? But our clients who have businesses and or organizations have had to stare down that curveball and have had to make some really tough decisions. Though it may not seem like it at first, a silver lining of all of this is that as we have had to endure a very fluid situation, we have all learned strategies to pivot and cope in an ever-changing environment. We have certainly found this to be the case in the marketing world and in our marketing department here at LGT. We wanted to share with you all 5 simple tips, tricks, steps, whatever you want to call it, you can make that can help you right now in your own organization or business, or can assist you in post-pandemic prep for any other crisis that may hit you in the future. So today, we're going to go over some of the common mistakes that have been made throughout the marketing industry during this time, and even during other times of crisis, including ones that we have caught ourselves making early on, After we talk about some of those challenges and the lessons learned, we will then go over some of the strategies and solutions to overcome those challenges. We'll also be going over social media strategies, choosing the right platforms, sharing your message, and a policy you can enact internally for your employees. We'll also discuss crisis communication and how that can help your marketing. And then finally, we're going to go over a big tip or trend that has been covering the market since the pandemic started and is going to gain momentum as it goes along. So let's get started. We're going to try to make this laid back, fun, and it will come with some digital prizes. Every once in a while throughout the presentation, you will see this symbol. You can see Belle kind of moving around over it. When it appears, that means there will be a link in the chat that you can click on to get digital swag that will help you with creating social policy or can be shared online. At LGT, we love our swag, and moving to digital events means that my garage is currently filled with all the items that we sadly don't have the opportunity to give out right now. But we never believe in letting you leave empty-handed. So Belle and I decided to create something for you to share with the community. If any of you ever played video games, think of these being those bonuses or trophies that you were so excited to earn at the end of a level. Or those of us who are a little bit older like myself and remember playing games in the arcade, these are like putting your initials on that all-time high score list on your favorite game. If you post one of these bonuses to social media, please tag us at Lane Gorman Trubit, and we'll be happy to send out a shout to you. So without further ado, let's get started on talking over some of these 5 steps. The first one that we're going to talk about today is keep it simple. So throughout this presentation, we're going to provide you with some of the obstacles that we've been faced with and learned from so far. You may have been faced with them as well. The one that we want to talk about right now is over communication. If you've ever been in a crisis, you may have found yourself faced with the tendency to over communicate. For example, my wife was in a car accident a few years ago where another car hit her car while she was driving our son to school. When she called me, she desperately wanted to relay every detail to me repeatedly and explain the story over and over. And all while she was waiting for the police to get there, she felt this need to give me every single piece of information that she could think of multiple times. But in that moment, all I really needed to know were 4 things. She was in an accident. They were both okay. Police were en route and their location so I could get to them. That's all I wanted or needed to know at that moment. So sometimes in the face of a crisis, our emotions and sense of urgency can create a knee-jerk reactions that may drive our decisions on what to communicate and how to distribute that communication. I mean, if you think back to March or April of this year, you may remember a drive that everybody seemed to experiencing to find out information, to find it out quickly. So a lot of companies who may have been in the know about certain things started communicating content and then began over communicating this information. Like we were a major news source. The problem here is that there was so much information that was getting so heavily and quickly distributed that we didn't have it effectively segmented initially. We realized that for our clients, this may have begun to feel a little bit like drinking water from a fire hydrant. This flood of information can actually create a sense of white noise and can even contribute to a form of information fatigue. So once we realized that we were creating too great of a flood of information, we had to figure out, okay, how do we reshape the behavior? We began to assess our message distribution and to look at other ways to process some of this information, utilizing our website and social media platforms in effective but not overwhelming ways. During our assessment, we started actually asking some targeted questions. Do our clients need to know this? Is there a legal or ethical obligation to communicate this? What is some of the content that might be disintegrating into noise that can be combined in our marketing efforts to still provide thought leadership, but give our contacts their email space back as well? So what does good pandemic communication need? All right, there are 3 things that need to be considered when pushing out any information, and especially during a crisis. First, ask yourself, is this information accurate? Am I providing the facts and truths, or is this speculation? We all know that providing false information can create a rift in trust in an organization, but it's also important to remember that speculative information can have an impact too. I had a boss a long time ago who provided me with a piece of wisdom that I have continued to carry with me throughout the years. She would tell me, always come with facts, never assume. Assumption causes doubt. So when we talk to our customers, colleagues, stakeholders, we want them to know we are a place of trust and truth with well-founded and accurate information. The secondly, make sure your message is timely. Too early, and we may not have all the accurate information and can begin to roll into assumption category. If we have too late of information, we're old news. We have to find the fine line between the two. The third consideration that we have found to be important in our own marketing and in the global marketing world is to make sure your content, message, and post establish empathy with your audience. During this time, many of us have experienced a collision of our personal and professional lives as we deal with running businesses and professional obligations as we cope with this pandemic. What we have found in marketing right now is that people aren't as interested in hearing about how great your company is or ego-driven marketing. They're asking, how do you relate to me? And what I am going through? And this is a great question, and one we need to consider. Asking questions like, okay, well, what are the pain points for our target audience members? What could be causing them to lose sleep? How can we help guide them? A softened tone in your messaging and content in your post might go a long way right now. So I love this slide. So when Belle and I were collaborating on this presentation, she gave me this cow picture, and I loved it. It reminded me I need to eat more chicken and how much I've missed Chick-fil-A. But let's really talk about how can we save Elsie here. So in Marketing 101, they teach you never to sell the farm. Even though we want to be empathetic and communicative, we also have to know the line that crosses over into free information and the cost of your experience. Provide your clients and prospects with enough information that draws them in and starts to answer the question to their problem. Then give them a call to action. You're then passing that ball. Again, sorry, sports fanatic over here. So I use a lot of sports in my webinars, and putting it in their court to contact you to know more. And if you have some other really cool, great cow pictures, you can also send them to Belle. In fact, I think we put her email address right up there. Congratulations, Belle. All right, so let's recap a little bit on this first little section. So you want to know your audience. We need to find out their pain points. What is their problem and need? How can we answer their question or guide them to a solution without providing too much information? I like to use an analogy of a great story from a book or a movie, and how in a story there's a main character and who needs to get to the end of that story, but has challenges along the way. But as marketers and sales, we want to be that guide of that story. So for example, just like Lord of the Rings, hopefully no spoiler alert here. Frodo and Sam set out to destroy the ring, but they had Gandalf and others along the way, guiding and navigating them through their challenges in order to get to the end. The same goes with those searching for the solution for their problem in their business. How can we guide them along to that right solution? Okay, so we've mastered our first step in the process, and you've earned your first social badge. Congratulations, big hand. Post it on your desired platform. We just ask that you just tag us when you do. So for this next session, I'm going to throw it back over to Belle. She's going to go over some of the digital stuff.
Hi guys. So tip number 2 is going digital. We've all been forced to move to social and other digital platforms because we aren't able to leave our houses. This includes internal communications, communications with clients, and of course, advertising, education, and brand awareness. They're all moving from a more traditional media to the digital platforms. LGT had already begun the process of moving towards completely digital over the last few years, and we're pretty comfortable on the platforms of our choice, but even we ran into a few obstacles. So the obstacle for this one is thinking that digital media doesn't have rules. We forgot about this because we were a little how do you say this? Well, I think you can all say that this pandemic has been very stressful, and having to pivot quickly was something we weren't used to, but we did it. So this is different than traditional media and advertising, and that information is instantly available. We talked earlier about the fact that we over-communicate with our clients. Well, we did the same on social, and we kind of paid a price for it. These 4 things that you see here ended up hurting us. So we posted a blog every day, and yes, there was information coming out every single day, but we are not a primary source. We would be a secondary source, and we probably would have done better by posting 2 blogs a week. We would have had an opportunity to market them better and make sure people were getting that information. As it was, there was an oversaturation and people got too much information. Additionally, we posted on our social media because we've done these blogs, we want people to read them. So we ended up posting 3 to 5 times or more sometimes a day on all of our platforms, even if we didn't have a client. Now we're going to talk later on about platform choice, but that's just that first part to realize that you don't always have to post on every platform. And finally, because we were so busy creating content, we didn't respond as quickly as we could have to people who had questions on social or comments or shares. And we really should have reached out to them in that same day and been like, hey, we're so glad you liked this. If you need more information, go check out our PPP loan page, or here's another piece of information that might help you, like a webinar. And finally, once we found what our niche was in the campaign, in the pandemic, and we knew how we could help our clients, we didn't run a paid campaign. So we missed an opportunity to get it specifically in front of the people who needed it. So what was our solution for that? There we go. Here are the 4 rules for digital media. 1, figure out where your audience is and go there. If your audience is on LinkedIn, go to LinkedIn. If it's on Facebook, go to Facebook. What we did was overpost. So not only did we go to where our audience was, but then we bombarded them with information. So they probably didn't have a chance to see it all because we weren't able to work on our timings. So if we know that our people are looking at it between the hours of like 2 to 4, we want to post between 2 to 4 so it shows up on their feed. But because we were posting so much, we had to post it throughout the day, and they missed that opportunity to see the content that might have been valuable to them. A good rule of thumb for posting is 1 to 2 posts a day. Rule number 2, give it time. Transitioning from traditional to digital media takes time. Unfortunately, in the middle of pandemic, you don't have a lot of time to figure out what works best for you. In that case, you can use the 1 to 3 posting ratio. 1 advertisement post for every 2 non-advertisement posts. Non-adverts can be shared content about your industry. So if you're a construction industry and there is an article you found that talks about how the construction industry is going to survive the pandemic, you can share that. Also includes fun stuff that you can do with your company, birthday shout outs, work anniversary shout outs. All of those things are fun content. Also, if you're looking for content to share, Link Orb and Trubit has a whole online database of industry-specific articles that we call Profit Sense. Our blog will always have some content that will help you in some way that gives you one of those 3 that you have to post, so you're not always doing ads. You can be like, oh, here's an article from my friends at LGT about how to prepare for a PPP loan, or here's an article from LGT about what that stimulus check means, all of those things. Finally, focus on one place and celebrate your success there. If you are new to digital, maybe you've only had a Facebook, and now you're like, okay, I'm ready to kind of expand out. As you expand, celebrate your successes there. If you get like 5 new followers in a day and you are a smaller firm, that's a big deal. Love it. Be proud of that. Focus there. Don't launch yourself onto every platform all at once. You will flame out unless you have a very large customer management team with a perfect CRM, which is a customer relationship management program. Choose a place to spend your ad dollars. And while you're there, don't forget rule number 1 and make sure your audience is there too. The last rule is think digital, not physical. So if you're driving into work like I do, I live out in Fate, I'm driving into Dallas, not now I work from home. I go by the same billboards every day on the 30. Every day I'm going to see that same billboard. That's traditional media. And a lot of people will take that thinking into digital media and think, oh, they're going to see this because they follow me. It's going to show up every day in their feed. Well, it won't, because there's a time displacement. There's a lot of media and they may not see it. So you have to figure out your timing. It's everything with social media, but you also have to find something that appeals to your clients and then invest your ad dollars there. Make certain that any content you post is on brand and speaking to the client need. So as you're making that transition from traditional to digital, which we like to call the new normal, keep these in mind. Traditional marketing has been fading over the years, and that's why now is one of the best times to switch, because people are staying home. Most of you already have some presence on a digital platform. You're either on Facebook or LinkedIn. Maybe you're on Instagram if you're a highly visual company. If you have not yet gone in and claimed your business on Facebook and Google, I would suggest doing that as soon as this webinar is over. Go in and claim that, because people can rate and review you without you having any say in it, because you haven't claimed the business. You don't want anyone to say something about your company without you being able to thank them for a compliment or address their concerns. It just looks better. And since people are staying home, now is a great time to spend money on social ads. And here's why. We used to go to the coffee break room, have a cup of coffee, talk with our friends on our break. Now when we take a break, and if you are working from home, please make sure you take breaks. They're super helpful. We look at Facebook or LinkedIn on our phone. All platforms are seeing a huge increase in usage during the lockdown and the pandemic. So now's a great time to spend money on social ads. Facebook and LinkedIn have highly targetable ads that you can use. You can even on LinkedIn upload a list of people who you want to see it exactly. And as long as that is an ethical list, LinkedIn will follow it. And finally, we're here for you. So if during this process you have any questions, write them down, put them in the QA. We are happy to answer them for you. So what is digital marketing? We know what traditional is. It's those billboards, it's TV ads, it's magazine ads, it's benches as you're driving. Digital marketing is any message you send via a digital source that is marketing oriented. So the most obvious of these is your website. And Josh is going to talk about it in a little bit. This is probably the main way that you talk about your brand. This should be the most information rich. It should be the most engaging of your content. Next is emails. So at Lane Gorman Truitt, I'm sure a lot of you who are here received our marketing emails for these. We use a program for that. If you are just sending out regular text emails, that's great. We found that there is a magical ratio on graphics for emails that we'll talk about later. Text messages and SMS. If you are a company that sells a product, these are wonderful. If you are not on the Sonic text message list, Sonic the drive-through, I get like about one a week, and it's always a great deal. And it gets me to go to Sonic, even if I don't want something from there. Finally, social media, which also includes video marketing. I just kind of made them separate. Social media is any of the platforms. We're going to go into that later, like I said. Video marketing is anything you do which is a recorded content that they can watch at any time. So YouTube is a great example. Vimeo, great example. This webinar, after we're done, will be made available for you to see on YouTube, so you can go back and rehash all these notes. And then webinars, which you're at, good job, I commend you. And podcasts, which is another option you can do for webinars. You can turn them into podcasts. Did I forget any? If I didn't mention one, please let us know in the chat, and I will definitely add it to my list for next time. Josh?
Oh, I gotta unmute myself there. Thanks, Belle. Yeah, one of the great things that we've done at the very beginning of the pandemic was to set aside a resource page for our clients and audience that pertain to anything pandemic related. This was an extension to what we previously did during the Hurricane Harvey situation. And we felt this not only provided great content for others, but it was a centralized repository that others could use during this time. And the great thing about it was we wanted to provide information that wasn't primarily ours and that contained information from other reliable sources when it came to their business and the health and welfare of their employees. This included links like COVID-specific information from the CDC, Small Business Administration, Treasury, IRS. I'm sure I'm missing a few more. What this did was empathize with our audience and guide them to solutions that would help them in the end. On top of these resources, we used the site to provide additional information that came from sources within the firm in the form of, like we're doing today, webinars, blog insights, other news articles. In the end, we wanted to give our viewership relevant information, but also a way to reach out if they need any additional help in the form of call to actions. You're probably hearing that a lot in this presentation. Call to actions are very good. You want to draw them back to you so you can answer and talk to them and drive your business even more. So back to you, Belle.
Do you love how I just like pass things off to Josh in the middle? Like, oh, your job now. I'm gonna take a break and have some tea.
I appreciate that too.
You're welcome. So let's talk about market saturation. Email marketing is one of the biggest forms and most effective forms of marketing. Social is great, but unless you pour a lot of money into it, you can't always get in front of the crowd you want. Email marketing ensures that you are targeting people who want to see your content, who are interested. So what types of email marketing is there in a pandemic? Well, we have our monthly newsletter, Profit Sense. We continued to do that. There's pandemic-related information from your company. So if we had something, when the PPP loans came out and there was so much information about it, we sent out an email saying, hey, listen, if you need help, we're here, we can help you figure this out. Additionally, we would send links to the webinar about our PPP loans. That would help people figure out if this was the right thing for them and how to apply. Those were some very popular webinars. I loved those. And then we also would send out safety updates. So we don't have a whole lot of clients come into the office. We usually meet our clients at their location, but Lingorm Intrepid is also going through a remodel. We're getting a new thing, and we knew we were going to be out of the office anyways. We got a little lucky with the pandemic timing, which is a weird thing to say, in that we were all preparing to work from home, and we already had an idea of what we would tell our clients and how we would meet them. So one of our safety updates was, yes, we're not going to be in office because we want to keep you safe. We want to keep us safe. Zoom meetings will happen. We can meet you where you're at digitally. So the next thing we learned is that there's a magic point with graphics that either get read or not. And that's for us, that's 2 images. Every company is different. If you are a company that has a lot of products that are highly visual, like if you're doing beauty products or home improvement products, those tend to have a couple more, might have more graphics. We're accountants. So 2 images was exactly how much our customers and guests wanted to see. We have 1 hero image and 1 support image. And the way we learned this is through A/B testing. And the way we knew that we needed to do A/B testing was because our unsubscribe rates went up. So we did an A/B testing, which can look at anything that you put in an email. It can look at graphics, it can look at messaging, it can look at click-through rates, like how many people opened the email and then clicked on a link in there. And it can also tell you how many people read it or just skimmed it. Yes, it is amazing what we can find out now with email software. So to test our A/B testing, because we thought it was graphics, because our messaging was very consistent and people liked it on social and they liked it in our blogs, we started with 2 images versus 4 images, and then we did 2 images versus 3 images. Once we found our sweet spot, we moved in and we lived there. So now if you get emails from us, there's usually about 2 images. Now that we only have these 2 images, we want to make sure they count. So all of our images are triple vetted, and then we track them to see what colors, messages, and imagery matters. And that really helped us come up with some amazing, useful content. So the next thing is, let's talk briefly about social media rules and outbreaks. Like any disaster, don't talk about stuff that you don't know. So like, we're accountants. We're not going to talk about viral contact tracing. That's not something we do. It's not our expertise. We want to live in our place and give you the best information for us. So here are the 4 rules that we suggest for outbreaks. Disclosure of infection. So let's say you have an outbreak and it has been identified as a point in which there is a lot of things. Do you have to tell the public on social media? You should consult with your HR and legal team to find out. And that really depends on if you have a closed facility or an open facility and how many cases you have. But you don't have to disclose it on social. Sometimes you can just disclose it in an email. You also have to be careful about how you disclose it so that you don't violate employee health privacy. And you want to not cause a panic when you do it. You can't go to the public and say, Bobby got COVID. Did you talk to Bobby? Go get tested immediately. You don't want to do that. You want to say, hey, you've seen these. If you were in the office on this day, we would suggest that you go and get tested, especially if you're seeing symptoms. We had a few cases, or an individual had it. You have to be very diplomatic and protect your employees. And also, when you don't cause that panic, it's easier for your customers to trust you because you're like, we are handling this professionally. It's real easy to ride the drama wave on social media and hyper focus on details that might cause more problems. Rule number 3, do not share content unless you can verify it. For us, we like the CDC as a primary source for anything that is COVID health related. We like Forbes for anything that is financial related. We tend to pull a lot of information from there and then verify with secondary sources. We at Lingorm Intrepid are a secondary and sometimes a tertiary source, and that can cause problems with dilution. So we want to be very ethical about how we present information. And finally, don't answer any questions that aren't your industry. And finally, the most important thing you can do for your company is a social media policy. Why do you need it? Well, let's talk about what a social media policy is first. A social media policy is you are telling your clients, hey, we know that you're going to use social media. If you talk about the company, we'd like you to talk about it in this manner. A social media policy can be anything from just that to these are the exact rules. This is how you will be talking about your company. You can even say if you have a LinkedIn, it will be run by the company, though usually that is reserved for executives or run by the marketing department. In addition to that, why you might need a social media policy: legal reasons and brand protection. If you are a financial organization or like our financial advisors, you have compliance issues, that is completely separate from your standard social media policy. And then I would suggest a pandemic specific social media policy. What can be posted by employees to just ensure that employee protection and to teach them how to have a calm tone. So that is the conclusion of my section. We have another gift for you. If you think that writing a social media policy is so much work and that sounds exhausting, it is. So Josh and I sat down and we created a social media policy guide for you. And what you can do is you click on the link in the chat. It is a fillable PDF and it will help guide you through the process of writing it. Now I'm going to throw it back to Josh.
Awesome, thanks. I think we're going to go through some of the social stuff here. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide.
I'm sorry, Josh.
No, you're fine. I didn't want to steal your thunder if you wanted me to.
Just make him do it like without any notes or anything. Go with God. Okay, I'm going to go through this real quick. So the obstacle we ran into with our platform choice was that we were using Twitter and it was unloved. We didn't post often enough. We didn't do enough outgoing engagement for awareness. And we didn't have anyone actually following or sharing our content. So to deal with that, we really focused on our Twitter choice. And we said, you know, this isn't the right choice for us to post on. But Twitter does have a potential for unique views due to the topic. Every post needs to have a link, and you want to engage with similar entities that are asking questions you can answer. And of course, use hashtags. So let's talk about your platform choice real quick. The two big ones are Facebook and Instagram. Facebook is excellent for business to client. It has 2.23 billion monthly active users. Like I said before, if you haven't claimed your business, do it now. There's also a place for business to use Facebook, but we have seen more success on LinkedIn than Facebook. And a successful campaign on the return on your spend is 4-to-1. Instagram is a subsidiary of Facebook, so you can cross-market. Those are marketing plans that are available, but Instagram is highly graphic oriented. Ad spends that are successful on Instagram are usually directed towards products and apps that they can get in-app. Next one is LinkedIn. This is where we live. Excellent for business to business. Multiple posting options. You can do feed posts, pulse posts. You can do LinkedIn Live, which is in beta testing. You can also do the LinkedIn Messenger posts, which I have opened one. I've only opened a few, but they don't have as much success as feed posts for us. Now, because LinkedIn is different, a good return on ad spend is 2-to-1. So for every $2 you get, you should get $1 back. That's a successful ad spend. Also, if you sign up and you do LinkedIn, you get LinkedIn Premium included in your LinkedIn campaign. You can see who's looking at your company, and it gives you access to LinkedIn Learning, which is a great resource for all sorts of things. Now you're probably wondering, hey, Belle, why aren't you talking about Google Ads? Well, here's the problem with Google Ads. This is a highly advanced learning algorithm. And unless you have someone who is dedicated completely to Google Ads and SEO, which is search engine optimization and marketing, you cannot keep up with this. Just so you know, your phone is not listening to you. Alphabet is just smarter than any of us. Now, Alphabet is the parent company of Google Ads. It makes predictions based on who you are and people like you and what they've done, and it predicts what you're going to want to see, and it's pretty accurate. So unless you have someone who understands the bidding system, I would pass on Google Ads. Bring in a professional or outsource it. So now we're to Twitter, and I told you earlier we would talk about Twitter. This is good for who? We don't know. We cannot tell you if this is great for business to business or business to customer because we don't always know who we're talking to. Twitter is one of the highest bought social media platforms there is. No one agrees on what the return on ad spend is for success, and it requires instant and constant responsive communication, which means if someone tweets at you within an hour, you need to be back at them. It is great for social media. It's great for customer service and advocacy, which we see a lot. We see a lot of politics there. Unfortunately, we also see cancel culture live there, which is very toxic. So unless you are a highly aware brand, I would pass on Twitter. And then YouTube and WhatsApp. So if you have any kind of video content, YouTube is fantastic. We do them. You can, anything that's not in the title or your name, you can create a tag. So for this, we'll tag social media policy on our YouTube, and then more people will be able to find it that way. You can do any number of things, and they succeed at 10 minutes or more. Now, WhatsApp is a messaging service, so you can actually have it on your phone. I'm a huge fan of this as a way to reach out because I don't always check my text messages, but I do check my WhatsApp. If you have any questions about these and would like to know more, go ahead and shoot me an email and I can help you figure out what's a good platform for you. Now, of course, there's alternative platforms, and these are really for more specific individuals. Reddit is for people answering questions. TikTok is fun as heck, but it might be going away, all of these. And again, they're just other places. Also, put a mask on, lady. Okay, now I'm really gonna pass it off to Josh.
All right, thanks, Belle. That was awesome. Okay, so now we've gotten 3 down. We've got 2 more to go. We're getting there, folks. If you need to stand up and stretch it out, grab a drink of water, go ahead and do that, because this next section, we're going to talk a little bit about a plan that you can put in place. This is something that's a little bit more dear to my heart, and I'll tell you why here in just a second. Probably one thing that is ignored, let's go ahead and go to the next slide, Val. So probably one thing that is ignored the most, but has received so much attention in the past few months or 5 months, is crisis communication plan. So in our lesson learning at the beginning of all of this and 5 months ago was making sure we had an updated crisis communication plan instead of updating it as it went along. Several of the updates were additional lessons learned through over communicating with our audience, which we talked about earlier. We realized this was an important update to our next version that we will be updating probably post-pandemic timeframe, because we're still going through everything. The other eye-opening lesson was including information on extended leave, and now including something about what our communication looks like during a pandemic. So on top of that, we were asking more out of our employees when it came to public relations than we had before, which was causing a slight exhaustion internally instead of, having a set team in place that we could designate as our crisis communication team. So what was and still is the solution? We have a great team internally set up to take, I'm not trying to, gloat or anything like that, but we, to take on some of these lessons early on during the process. But, through my 20 years in the Air Force Reserve, I served in the capacity that dealt primarily with public and media relations. And in some instances in places with high propensity to be chaotic and stressful. We won't go through those. But we also had the great Belle on staff, who also worked as part of the University of Louisville response team. So with this experience, allowed us to quickly provide a temporary plan that was easily pivoted and flexible as information continued to flow in. We also realized we not only needed a general communication plan, but also established more specific plans that address situations kind of like the one that we're going through right now, and easily implement in the matter of moments. The other great thing during all this was understanding that it's okay to make a few mistakes along the way. Our greatest successes come from failures, right? But always make sure to document the things that worked and the things that didn't work as well. This quote, I love this quote by Warren Buffett. It takes 20 years to build a reputation, 5 minutes to ruin it. If you think about it, you'll do things differently. And I think that is so true. So as I spoke about earlier, during my years in PR situations for the Air Force, we had to adhere to certain standards and procedures to get us through. In the next few slides, I want to talk a little more about a few of those steps you can put in place for your own crisis communication management. But first and foremost is making sure that you have a social media policy. Let's go ahead and go back one, Belle, if you don't mind. As we spoke on previously, we have to make this not only its own policy, but one that can easily adhere to your overall crisis communication plan. Now, let's say we have a crisis that happens, and I hope it doesn't, since we've dealt with enough in 2020. But the biggest takeaway from this slide is making sure that when faced with a tough crisis, it's crucial to respond within the first 48 hours. If you wait, then your followers, stakeholders, your audience, They're all going to begin to formulate their own opinion about that situation, and then start that ball faster down the hill. So what all goes into a crisis communication plan? We need to make sure whatever plan we have in place has a canned social media or email that allows you to respond quickly to any potential online or offline issue. This acts as a guide to respond quickly instead of debating how to handle things internally or waiting for executives and senior managers to weigh in. You can take action and prevent things from getting out of control once the bleeding starts. Acting fast is important. One of the stats I pulled says more than a quarter of crises spread within the hour of happening, but it takes companies an average of 21 hours to defend themselves in any kind of meaningful way. That's nearly a full day for the crisis to make its rounds on the web with no intervention, which is why response has to be quick and it has to be decisive. Each plan should also include the following: guidelines, roles and responsibilities, plan for internal updates, current contact information, approval processes, those pre-approved messages and images, and importantly, link to your social media policy. We're kind of hammering the social media policy thing today. Keep in mind, no matter how well you prepare, you won't be able to resolve everything with just 1 or 2 social media posts or emails, but people expect to hear from you. And it's important for you to acknowledge the problem right away. So next, I want to talk a little bit more about the communication internally. This is one of the most crucial part of the crisis communication response, is the communication internally within your own business or organization. This keeps everyone on the same page and helps to prevent misinformation and spread of rumors. Make sure everyone in your organization knows exactly what they should or should not say, post or do not post during and after the crisis. And a way to get ahead of that is through what's called social listening. And I'll talk a little bit about that. It's always good to get an early warning system before a crisis happens. One of those ways is through a good social listening program like Google Alerts. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide, Bill, which can help you spot an upcoming issue directly about your company or organization well before it turns into a crisis. You can use this platform to perform searches or certain keywords or phrases that can focus your organization, or maybe you can use it for an upcoming campaign announcement or marketing initiative. So this type of warning or alert can help with some advanced warning of a surge in recent social or online activity. But if you really want to keep an eye out for potential crisis, you should be monitoring what we call in marketing social sentiment. I know I'm throwing out some really crazy phrases and names here. Hopefully I'll try and explain it. Social sentiment is actually a metric some platforms like Google that captures how people feel about your brand. And I know not only can Big Brother see us now, but it can now determine your feelings too. It's definitely some Minority Report, Tom Cruise type stuff. If you haven't seen the movie, check it out. Steven Spielberg was the movie prophet of the future. So now while looking at your metrics, if you see a sudden change, whether it's a spike or dip, that's an immediate clue to start digging into those listening streams to see what people are saying about you and your brand. So say that a metric, you see it, a massive spike in brand mentions, it's always worth investigating to see if this is a positive change or is it potential crisis in the making. So during a crisis, scheduled posts that compromise your situation will at best make you look unprepared. And if not handled, could possibly derail your in-place crisis communication plan. It's ideal to make sure that all posts, especially during a crisis, are purposeful, planned, and controlled. We did this early on during COVID crisis. We had several in-person event posts about to be sent right at the same time a shelter-in-place county order was put in place. If we kept these scheduled, this could have potentially portrayed the firm as being unprepared, unorganized, and possibly not up to date with the current dilemma. And that is not the image we aspire for our clients and our customers. So once we have all of those things, if going through your first crisis, make sure you take the time to track and learn. Keep a detailed record of everything you did and how well it worked. This is an excellent time to get your crisis team together from across all your different business sectors to talk about the experience you've all been through and share knowledge and experiences from different parts of your team. Take the time to examine the plan. Think about anything you could add that would prevent a similar crisis from occurring in the future, and review it to look for opportunities to incorporate a lessons learned. So, very dear to my heart, crisis communication. Yay, we finally made it through. We're down 4 and we got 1 more to go. And we're almost there. I think we're gonna try and get through this a little bit quicker. I know we're running up on the clock, but so in our last section, we wanna go over a few tips we've been seeing around the industry and something we continue to provide actually internally for our clients. I like this, it's educate, don't dictate. So, you know, as I mentioned earlier, this trend that we're seeing lately is in the amount of webinars and videos that are coming through, and you know that you see that are coming through in your emails. So let's call this the education movement. People are out to find things and want to know more about how to do their job better, or what makes their company grow more during a pandemic. If you're like me, when you began working from home, you started to see fixer-upper issues around the house. Of course, I'm a DIY person, so where do I go to find out how to do these things? Google. You know, what are your, you know, customers or your audience looking to find information that might help them? Google. What we see in the industry is a growing population in the marketing numbers of audiences needing that DIY way of new strategy building, and so my company can endure through this. This is great because just like earlier I mentioned, we have to be the guide to their solution, and this is a great way to get there. It builds trust and provides a way to provide brand awareness to help the people past even beyond that traditional marketing way. So how do we do it? Keep the messaging content simple. Ask them questions they ask themselves. Then provide a way to a solution. Sometimes this can be through updates on your website, blog articles like we talked about earlier, or create a webinar like we're doing right now that only takes an hour of your time. Now that we have those in place, we need to incorporate those call to actions, those things that draw them back in. This can be in the form of a simple contact form on your site or surveys you give out after your webinars. A great way to start the conversation and begin understanding how you can help guide them. Once you have this information, it's important to not let it sit there and begin to follow up, but follow up with empathy and understanding. What people don't need right now is someone trying to sell themselves. They want someone with whom they can relate to and help guide them to a solution. So I'm going to end it with Belle with this last slide here. She put this in, and I just love this image of this guy. It just speaks volumes. So go ahead, Belle.
So when you're creating content for your clients and finding a place for them in your base, you want to excite them. And that doesn't always mean like they're just like so thrilled to see your next post, but you want to elicit a response, and you want that response to talk about how you can help them, especially right now, because so many people are going through so much. So if you can say, hey, are you thinking about PPP loan forgiveness? We're here for you. Hey, do you want to remodel your kitchen? We can do it safely. Delighting and exciting your clients and letting them know that there is an opportunity for them to continue to receive things that they want without having to worry about it is such a big deal. And I agree with Josh. This guy just looks so happy. And that's how I want all my clients to respond. I want everyone who sees our content to be like, yay, we can get through this all together. You made it, guys. It's a big round of applause. And this is your final swag. So this is a great, we made you a social media badge because if you finish any class with me and Josh, we consider you a superhero. And now that you've finished digital marketing and crisis communication, you are a digital superhero. So save them, share them, tag us. We want to just really praise you for doing great work out here. And that's it. You've completed all 5 tips. We are so grateful that you guys joined us and stayed with us. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at askus@lgt-cpa.com. And if you have any cow pictures that you would like to see in future presentations, please email them to me. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you again for everybody for joining us today. We appreciate it. We hope that you gained some insight to marketing and how we can do this through different platforms, through crisis communication, and to really help yourself grow for your future. So again, just like Belle said, if you have any more information or you need more information or you have any questions, reach out to any one of us here at LGT.
Thank you for joining us. As this situation is constantly evolving, please make sure to follow our events page for more information. The link is in the description below, along with other important links, including our social media. If you want to see more of the Lane Gorman Trubitt Summer Survival Webinar Series, subscribe below and hit the bell icon for notifications.